you crashed in Montpellier, right?
Yeah,
On a double back.
that was 2012. Went there for the park contest. I was out there a couple weeks early to film like a Mirraco segment with Soul BMX, and I was hanging out and feeling good or whatever. And then I was watching the mega ramp contest. There's like BMX riders and mountain bike riders riding it, and someone asked me like, "You riding the mega ramp?" And I was like, "I don't ride mega ramp." And then they're like, "Oh, you're scared." And then the ego inside of me was like, "I'm not scared. Like, I got this." I drop in, and the roll-in was a lot steeper than a roll-in that we have here in the U.S. It was like maybe a 3 or 4 story tall roll-in, and it was extra steep. Whereas like mega ramp here is like long, and like you get a lot of speed from it. So I dropped in. When I got to the bottom, it was like real verty. You know, as soon as I took off, I was like, just please sprocket case, like 4 inches short of a sprocket case and nose case, and my handlebars hit me in the stomach. So I ended up putting a contusion on my pancreas, and I knocked the wind out of myself so hard I put an air bubble in my lung. Very quickly, they put me in this like inflatable stretcher that like kind of locks you in place and you can't move. And they brought me to this hospital, and nobody spoke English, so I was kind of stressed out. And I was there for like maybe 3 or 4 days. The last day that I was there, they woke me up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, sticking this tube through my throat that went through my vocal cords to like look at my lungs. And it was so like uncomfortable and painful, and it was like hitting my gag reflex. I ended up like puking all over myself, and I was like, this is terrible. Yeah. And I called my buddy back here, and I was like telling him what happened. And he's like, well, how do you feel? I was like, well, I feel all right. I feel fine. He's like, get out of there. I'm like, get out of the hospital. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I start ripping everything out, and I'm like peeking around the corner looking for doctors. I got to get out of here. And I realized that throughout that whole time, I was kind of hazy. I didn't remember where I was or how I even got there, and all the signs were in French. So I'm like looking like, where would the exit sign be? Like, and I finally figured out that the word sortie looked like it was where the exit sign should be. So I followed sortie, and then I got out, and I was like, I'm free, you know, and I ran to this train, and I got on it, and then before I know it, I was back at the contest. But I was definitely like pretty messed up. I wasn't allowed to eat food, so
you've avoided a hefty hospital bill that way. You're not the only rider I've heard of doing those things. It's the BMX health insurance for some people.
I think that I don't think there would have been a bill, because I'm pretty sure in France the healthcare is like free or something.
I didn't know how that would work if you're American. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I don't 100% know how that all worked. I just know that I was going to miss my flight back home, and I knew that they weren't letting me eat, and I was like really hungry. And then I ate, and then I realized why I wasn't allowed to eat, because as soon as I ate, it was all this crazy pain came back, and I was like, what's going on? Turns out that the pancreas produces enzymes that digest your food, and the only way for it to heal is to not be working, and for it to not be working, you just can't eat. So I had to go 6 weeks without like any real food. I could boil white rice and drink the water. It was pretty brutal.
Gnarly.
Yeah.
Wow. So that was 2012, but I'm going to bring it back. You kind of first went on the radar big time when the Come Up posted a clip of you doing a body varial on the Resi, and it was at Mira's warehouse or the unit. Which one was it?
It was Mira's.
Yeah, it was Mira's, and it was Chris Hughes' body varial, and it was like people were flipping out about it. And how did that trick even come about? Because nobody was, I mean, you know, Parker did it obviously on the vert ramp, but it's a different trick out of an air, and he's been trying that trick for a long time. Super gnarly. Mm-hmm. But what made you decide to start trying those?
Do you remember a guy that goes by the name of Matt Sparks?
Oh yeah, I'm a Midwest local, so of course, yeah, I watched Sparks' career from a firsthand perspective. He would come up and ride our contest. So
what happened is I went to the Rye Airfield contest, I believe 2009, and he was there, and he just started trying to huck the body varial over one of the boxes, and he would catch the bars occasionally, but it didn't seem like it was there, or it was like it seemed like it was possible from watching him do it, but at the same time I was like, I don't know if it's possible. It looks really insanely difficult because he was getting pretty worked. But I kind of just randomly just started messing around with it one day, and I started catching it, and then I was like, huh, maybe I could do this, and then I started trying it a lot, and it took a long time before I landed the first one. Like it was like really hard. It's still hard. The trick is like a forever. It's like alive. It's kind of hard to explain, but like the trick is alive. It's like it's how well can you adapt on the fly changes the consistency of it.
So you actually pulled one first try at Jomo Pro, best trick, and won a motorcycle. Not too long after that.
Yeah,
that was probably the same year.
That was an extra redemption for me because the year before I tried to do it and I landed like Superman, like ball rider, and my shoelace got caught on a screw and it like twisted my knee, and I couldn't walk for like 3 months. Like I don't know what happened that time, but my knee got like super messed up. And when I went back, that was such a like funny story to me because I was like, all right, this year, like for sure, like I'm just gonna wait a little bit. You know, like I'm not gonna drop in first. I'm not gonna ride first. And then that year, they called names in an order, and they're like first rider, and they say Chris Hughes. I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm the first rider. Like, man. And then when I landed it, I was like, oh no, like I was the first one. They're gonna forget about me by the end. I was like, there's no way. And I was watching everybody ride, and I kept watching like all the crazy stuff go down. And I don't know if that was before Daniel Dares did the cash roll.
It was. Yeah, he actually did a Cork 7 in that best trick.
Yeah, because Mad Dog was trying to do the cash roll, and he ended up landing it. But
then it would have been after because Dares learned him first before Mad Dog.
Okay, yeah. So Mad Dog did it, but he landed it after time. So I didn't know like if I was in the running to win or not. And then I ended up winning, which was really cool.
And that was gnarly. That box jump looked kind of crazy too. I mean, that's like a park, kind of looked like a wood and concrete park. If anybody's not familiar, it's no longer there, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that box jump was really small.
And speaking of box jumps, yeah. I heard some rumors you were going to try at James Foster's house on a big box, maybe a body barrel to 360. That's kind of been something that people are talking about. Is there any truth behind that trick coming in about?
Well, I have actually pulled that off a couple of times in just random Mirra sessions where it was like kind of like lucky one-offs, but I haven't figured out if I'm going to start with that one yet. Because man, it's like it's different. Like I've had to do so much alterations of how I'm doing just the body barrel. Like I think right now I have it the most consistent that I've ever had it, and I still can't land it every single time, but I'm landing, like my landing ratios are much higher, and part of that is the way that I'm doing it. So I'm like trying to give myself time to keep that way of doing it in my head before I start changing the technique of it, because it's kind of like if you learn like 720s and then you start learning how to do dip 720s, that rotation might mess up like both of them until like you have one like kind of locked in, you know?
I think Dares said he lost his straight sevens because he does the cork sevens, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a good analogy.
Yeah, like for me, like I really love nosedive 360s, and then like I was still able to do nosedive 360s like the way that I like to do them. And then I started doing 360 tricks again, like 360 no-handers, stuff like that. And then I lost my nosedive 360s, and then I was like, So then like I've been trying to relearn how to nosedive 3, and like now I'm trying to keep like a separate line, like almost like two different tricks. But so that's kind of like my concern. I'm like I don't want to mess up what I've got, because I have other things kind of planned for that, to kind of just test and see what is possible or whatnot.
But yeah, no, it's an amazing trick, and I think I was surprised that more people didn't realize you're doing them fly out even, which is insane, because you were doing them on top of a show box fly out, which you think that trick like just doing that alone, like, opens up so many things. Like, you could do that on top of a deck to bar off or whatever you want to do. And you ever think you could do one bunny hop? I mean, is it possible?
I've tried to do it hippie hop, and I've actually caught the
Oh,
handlebars.
no way.
So I was like, oh, like I could probably do this with like enough messing around with it. But I think what I want to do, what I see in my head, which I'm not going to make any promises because it just depends
Yeah, we're
on
not
the
calling out
situation. But
tricks. It's a gnarly
but
thing to talk about.
I think up rail to body varial would work.
Oh, wow, that'd be sweet. I never thought about that. That'd be cool if you did it.
I kind of think like a body varial to 180 to disaster to revert
Oh, sick.
on a quarter. That would be like really sick.
I want to see you do that one on the wall. You try to Animal House during the best trick. Like, do you see the Unclick podcast where they're talking about that? You were actually on there like a month ago. They were watching old highlights of the King of the Animal House, and they're like, it was with Morgan Wade, and they're watching you do the body varial on the wall. Like, it's like you weren't doing it like, for anybody that hasn't seen it, you're jumping on the wall and spinning, holding the bike. You ever do that before? Pull that? Do you not remember even trying that?
No.
You don't remember that? I'll find the clip. That's funny.
That's
I swear,
crazy.
Yeah, you're doing like, it's like imagine you're doing like a, you ever see Steve Questa do those wall plants back in the day? Like, he like would jump on the wall.
It was like a wall run tail whip, but instead
Yeah.
of wall run body varial. Yeah.
Kinda. That's what, if I'm remembering right. Yeah. So I'll find it. It was the King of the Animal House on the wall, because they did segments for like best trick, and even Durs was like trying wall to double whip. Craig Mass was trying wall ride the front foot player, and then there was a clip of you jumping on the wall and then like trying to do a body varial on the wall, holding your bike up.
That's
crazy. You don't remember it. I mean, I didn't remember it because I wasn't there, but I saw the clip and I was like, that's wild.
That's a pretty good idea. That might be something.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, I don't know what year that was, I forget, but yeah, that's funny. It looked like you were close. So. And then another thing is too, I know a lot of people are seeing the body varial to tail whip, which is insane, because the 360 almost makes more sense because you're already rotating, and it brings like that momentum. But to do it to a tail whip, like, I seen our Willie do one on Resi, but I was like off of a huge launch. But you're doing it at Pat Casey's house. You did it off that like step up or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something you tried back in the day too?
Mm-mm.
That's a new one for you.
Yeah. I have a friend that I met doing, it was actually pre-Nitro Circus, but it was almost like a test for Nitro Circus. We did like this Nitro Circus show in Indiana. Yeah, I think it was Indiana. And it was almost like looking back on it, I'm like, oh, Travis was like kind of testing out this idea before he like fully went into it. So like they kind of rented out this like smaller like type of arena, and they had, they built like a big like mulch dirt mixed landing so that like the BMXers could like send it super hard. And then they had like moto stuff and like a pit bike race. And I met this guy there. He actually let us crash at his house, and he's kept in touch with me ever since. His name's Timmy. And he was talking to me like on direct message when the body varial, I like did a body varial over Pat's ramp, and we were kind of laughing about it because I hadn't done one in so long, and I landed it. And then I posted that one. So that dude Timmy was talking to me, and he's like, "You think you could do a tail whip in that?" I was like, "I don't know, maybe." And then it was like maybe a month or two later, I was at Andy Buckworth's house, and I was trying it on the Resi, and I realized like, oh, okay, this is possible. And then I think it took 91 days.
Wow.
But really, like, I was just having a bad day, and I was like, oh, I could just lock myself inside my house and just like be in a bad mood and just be upset. I was like, or I can like turn this around and go do something positive. So I was like, I'm just gonna go to Pat's, and I went over to Pat's, and we were riding, and I was like, just kind of like, I was trying to film a YouTube video, and it was doing like two tricks that I used to be able to do, and then learn one new trick that I'd never done before. And I did all those, and then I was like, all right, like that was cool. And then I just kind of started trying it, and I caught one real good and kicked it, and it was like right in front of me. I was like, oh, the only thing I got to do is get my bike like under me. So then I tried it a bunch of times. Um, I actually, I probably would have landed it 3 times before I landed the one that I posted if it was on a real jump.
Oh,
Because
wow.
like I landed on, I landed one like perfect, like my feet like locked to the pedals, and I like stuck the landing super hard, but my front wheel just like slid and I just washed out. And I was like, oh, I was like, the resi got me, you know? So then I had to keep going because I was like, at this point, I was like, I have to keep going. And I was like, I literally got my feet on the pedals. I was like, I can't not do this now. So then I kept going, and then the one that I rolled away from, that's the one I ended up keeping.
Yeah, dude, it's unreal. I mean, you can't even fathom that trick. I remember seeing you actually do another trick. You rode at my local park, the Flow, and you actually ended up getting knocked out. But
Oh yeah,
yeah, you did a waltz like
I got
a
this scar.
yeah.
Where is it?
It was gnarly. I mean, I think
Oh, I see
you
it.
were killing it. You know, you like had you triple tail whip this giant step up in the rhythm, and then run around the berm, the fronty, and then you're all over the park quick, even like a double flip mid run, and then you did like this wall run 360 tail whip, which I've never seen anybody else do either. It was pretty sick. Do you still do that trick? It's like you
I would love to do that trick. I would totally still do that trick. I just haven't found anywhere that has any like quarter pipe to wall anywhere around here that I could do that trick on. But as soon as I find one, I'll probably do it again. But I called that a Canadian hurricane.
oh, Canadian Hurricane, that's sick. Yeah, I didn't know if you had a name for it because I was like, that's another one. So you've always had kind of like, you know, you're a big trick guy, but you also had that creativity, which you mixed into like those type of park contests. So it was always cool to see like, you know, like a lot of people, they're going to be doing a lot of the standard tricks, which are gnarly, but you always kind of had your own twist on things. So how'd that come about? Because it seems like you kind of also came up with like a cliffhanger backflip with Chad Kagi might have done one maybe first over a mega ramp, but I think he might have been the first to do it on a box jump. Um, that trick's gnarly. And I remember seeing the photo of it, and one of my buddies was convinced back in the day that you did not get back on over the box at JC
Mm.
skate park in Greenville, because he's like, there's no way because you were completely extended. It wasn't like you were like halfway. So how'd that
Hmm.
trick come about? Because that's super gnarly.
That's a that's a funny one because I was riding I was riding Toronto BMX Jam, and there was a serious battle going down between me, Drew Bazanson, and Pat Casey. And I remember every time I did something sick, Drew would be like, "Oh, nah," and he'd drop in, and then he'd go do something crazy, and then Pat would drop in and do something crazy, and then like is we literally just kept like trying to one up each other the whole time, and we were having fun with it, obviously, but it was just like every time somebody did something, it was like the next person did something, stepped it out, and you're like, what do I do, you know? And the box jump was so bad, it was like it would have been good, but I think they only had like one sheet of like plywood on it because you could feel every rib. It was like
Yeah.
like every time you went off it, it was like totally just like bumpy. Um, I had messed around a little bit with cliffhanger flips in the foam pit, but I never did it. So I just sent it on that shitty box, and I landed it, and it was like I started laughing because I thought it was like crazy. I was like, "This is funny as hell! Like, how did I land this just now?" Like to me, I was just like super surprised. And then from that point, like that first one, I have a picture of it somewhere. It's not very good. It's like um, my body's crouched, my knees are still kind of bent, like it's like not like fully extended. But that was kind of like the stepping stone to what it became.
Which is gnarly. Again, yeah, it's another one of those tricks that you know, you're not seeing a lot of people do. Like Hucker will do them, but he does them a little differently than you. And I don't know, his are amazing too, obviously, but yours are so straight up and down. So yeah, props for you for that. Trick's pretty wild.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of people are going to want to know how you ended up meeting Dave Mira, because you're a SoCal kid originally and still are, right? But
Hmm.
did you live in Greenville at one point?
Yes.
Okay, and let's hear
Um,
the story because Miro was putting on guys that were big, already known riders, but then he was also bringing guys like you on who were up and coming, which was always cool.
mhm. So basically, what had happened, I was riding, I was riding SoCal. At my very first contest, I met this dude that everybody's gonna know. He had dyed black hair, two lip rings. He had snake bites. This like ratty like quadruple spray painted helmet that was just all scratched up. And this dude did a backflip turn down, and it blew my mind because I'd never seen anybody do a trick in a backflip at the time. This was like 2005. And then he sent a backflip tail whip, and it was like my brain exploded.
Was it Thomas Hancock?
No,
It
was James Foster.
James Foster. Okay. Yeah, no, there's
James Foster. And after I saw him ride and met him at that point, like I kind of like just kind of like kept in touch with him like on like what was it, MySpace back then, I think. And like we ended up becoming friends. And then one day he just impulsively was like, I'm moving to North Carolina. You should move to North Carolina with me. We're gonna ride Dave Mirra's warehouse. And I was like, I was 18. I was like scared of like leaving like the house and taking on like adult bills and everything. And I was like, how am I gonna live? Like, how am I gonna pay rent? Like, I'm like, I ride BMX and I do shows. I'm like, if I leave California, then like I have no money. I was like, what am I gonna do? And he's like, don't even worry about that for right now. He's like, just come and you'll figure it out. And I'm like, all right. So on a whim, I just packed up all my stuff and I just left.
Wow.
It was definitely scary, but it was cool. And I just started riding there. And at the time, like I was decent at riding. Like I could do some cool stuff. Like for the time, I was able to do double whips and I think 540 whips I was able to do at the time, like stuff like that. And but it was all just sketchy, like I was always relying on my brakes and everything. And it was Mira that like saw me and was like, you got a lot of talent. He's like, but you need to get better bike control. He's like, you need to take off your brakes. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, I've always like relied on my brakes. Like, I was like, I like my brakes. He's like, nah, if you take them off, you're gonna learn like everything you need to learn. And I was like, all right, so I'm not gonna say no to the big man. So I was like, all right. So I took them off, and then I basically had to relearn like pretty much everything. Like every trick felt weird because it was like, I'm like, this is so different. And then I just never put them back on ever again after that. Because once I got used to it, I was like, this is way better.
Yeah,
and it did teach
sick.
me everything about like, it taught my bike control so much, like instead of landing like shit, like learning how to control how you land.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a really cool backstory on that. And I was actually going to ask you about that. I didn't realize that was such a cool story behind it. It's funny, not that Doris kept his brakes off, but he one time paid Daniel Ayres, like I think it was due to Orlando. He's like, paid him, was like, I'll give you $3,000 if you ride finals without brakes. And Darius rides brakes all the time, and he ended up riding without him, which is just funny that Mira had like that mentality, like to tell him last minute, like take those brakes off, and I'll bet you $3,000 you won't do it. That's pretty amazing. And did you went to Europe? Did you go on that trip to Europe with Mirraco? It was like Gutler, and they met up with Harry Main, or was that
That was right before my time.
That
was probably like the year before, I think.
Mark Webb said it was 5K. Actually, he's in the comments here saying it was 5K that he gave. But anyway,
that sounds very much like something Dave would do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so yeah, you're on Mirraco, and you were on with Spinner for a while, and Gutler, and it was like Dave Reitel and Mike Laird, Austin Hardy, obviously Dave Nigel was on.
Buckworth was on. I think when I was on, it was Mira, Gutler, Buckworth, Baldock, myself, Nigel, and it might have been Rob Weiss.
He was on too. Yep, Rob Weiss was on. Yep.
And then I think that was the team for when I was on there.
Stacked. Yeah, it was a stacked team for sure.
Oh, and Austin
Hardy.
Coleman.
Oh, and Austin Coleman was on. Cool. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that. That's cool. Yeah, it's a lot of guys. A lot of people on the. He had a dream team for a while, man. It was crazy.
Yep. You know, Harry Mayne might have still been on there when I joined. I can't remember exactly when he dipped, but
Yeah,
I think he was
hyper failure first.
Yeah, you know what? He was still on there because I remember I tried his frame.
The main line.
Yeah, that thing was crazy. It's probably closer to what I'm riding now, but it was just shorter. But that thing was super responsive. It was like insane, like super good for riding tech, I think.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, they had a sick team. It was cool. Did you get to go on any trips with them before you dipped off the team?
Yeah, I went on a trip. I went on like 3 different trips with Dave, and then one of them was like an official Mirraco trip, but it was literally it was me, Dave, and Baldock, and we went to Kansas City, and that was one of the craziest trips of my life. There's a really wild story there. I'd have to ask for Kyle Baldock's permission to tell it.
Yeah, but, I understand.
But we went wild. But there was like Dave got us into Motley Crue. Like we saw a Motley Crue show, which was like super crazy.
Oh, wow.
And we rode like a bunch of the skate parks out there, and it was a wild time.
Yeah, that's sick. That's really cool. And you were riding Detour pretty much through those years as well. And did you come up through the Open Qualifier? Did you ride the Free Flow Tour initially, like the AM series, or did you go straight to Open Qualifier right into the Detour?
I went straight to Open Qualifier
because I remember in Cleveland one time in dirt, you did a double flip in Open Qualifier. I think your forks broke or something like that, your front wheel.
I think it was my frame. I think I broke my frame. I'd always bring an extra frame just because I knew that was probably going to happen.
Yeah, that's another gnarly one. How do you get so comfortable with double flips, especially brakeless? Did you learn on brakeless, or did you have your brakes on at the time?
During that time at Detour, when I was nose casing double flips, I wasn't on Mirraco yet, and I was still kind of sketchy. I had my brakes, and honestly, like, I don't know, when I was a younger kid, I don't know, like, I feel like I didn't, like I knew that I loved BMX, but I felt like there was something else going on, like, inside of me as a person that, like, was kind of manifesting different things in BMX. And it was almost like BMX was not, like, a fully healthy thing for me, like, mentally at the time. Like, things have changed now. Like, I think that's part of the reason, like, kind of like I left BMX and why I'm back. But, like, I don't know. I felt like I just had this battle where it's just like I was more afraid of being afraid than I was of whatever it was I was doing. So, like, if that makes sense, like, there was something that caused me to just have to prove to myself and the world, like, I'm not afraid. So, like, it didn't matter how scared I was going to force myself to do whatever it was that I wanted to do. And that's kind of how double flips were. Like it was scary every time I did it. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't.
I mean, it's crazy. You do them over show boxes and stuff, which is crazy.
Yeah, I haven't done one in a long time. I mean, not like a crazy long time. I think the last one that I did during a show was probably like 2015 or 16, but I wasn't really riding then. Like, I don't know. I kind of didn't ride from like 2014 until 2022 or 2021, something like that.
So,
like, I rode, but it didn't, like, didn't count.
Another thing is front flips too. You were doing fronties at our park too, and you kind of do them more like Utler a little bit, like a little bit lower and longer, which was their sick. Do you still do that trick?
I still occasionally do it. Yeah, so it's weird because, like, I know how to do them the other way, but, like, it's like this weird confidence thing. Like, when I go to Woodward, I can go on, like, ride the resi or whatever. I can pull back and front flip, and it's, like, not so flat. But every time I do one for real, it's like I just do what I know that I'm going to get around for sure. So like I almost do it like Matt Berenger sometimes, where like I literally like I feel my front wheel just press into the lip and it just goes pop.
They're gnarly. Yeah, they're sick. So
Yeah.
around 2022, you said you picked up your bike again. Webby Show's asking about the injury at Feast. We actually kind of went over that already, so he must have missed it. But we'll be reposting this, so if anybody didn't catch the first half. But anyway, yeah, what made you pick up your bike again? Because I know you're into music and you're doing that. Maybe a lot of people assume that's like going to be your new thing and that you were never going to come back. And all of a sudden, around like, yeah, after COVID, you started posting new clips again. So what was the motivation to pick up your bike?
Before I continue, I love you, Webby.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Mark. I know you just jumped on here, but yeah, I had to ask him about that for sure.
Yeah, Webby's the man.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I fucking love Webby. He accidentally punched me in the throat one time, but it was my bad because I snuck up on him and it was his natural reaction. And I realized how badass Mark Webb was at that moment. I was like, this dude's got like real instincts. He remembers that. Oh man. Yeah. So the question was, why did
yeah, you got back into riding.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a two-part question. So I want to know like the motivation to come back in 2022, just riding again, and you're doing some Instagram lives in your backyard, like a kicker ramp and stuff. Just
that was like a coronavirus. I was locked down and there wasn't much to do, so I literally built like this sketchy little dirt jump in the backyard, and I was just like, oh, I might as well just mess around. But still at that point, like I still wasn't like, it still wasn't there. The whatever it was wasn't there. But all of this kind of happened by accident. Like my buddy Bar Spinner, he was the owner of Team Soil. He moved to Hawaii, and he's still there, but while he was there, he asked me like, hey, like if we get any bookings, like he's like, I'm not going to try to book anybody, but if we get any bookings, do you think you could like handle running the show? And I was like, yeah, that's fine, So occasionally I'd be doing shows and just kind of running the ship. And then he sold the company to John Parker, or he sold his ramps, and then he was like, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And then John Parker asked me if I wanted to do some shows. And then I was like, yeah, I'll still cover some shows, and then it just turned into some crazy shit. It's like, he was like, oh yeah, we got all these shows. Like it was literally like 3 months, like solid with like not too many days off where it's just like constant shows. And
wow.
The ramp that he had me using was like just so scary to ride. It was just like a sketchy ramp. I hated it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to keep doing these shows, I was like, I'm just going to build my own ramp that I feel comfortable riding. So I took all the money that like I made from that and I put it into like buying my own setup. And then that's where I got like that ramp that I ride. And I remember at some point during that period of time, I think this was 22. This was last year. This is like kind of like what fully got me back into it. But like I felt sketchy on my bike. Sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place.
You're good. No, you're good.
Basically, I'd spent all my money like back into investing into like basically being able to do this business, and simultaneously I'm running another business. I do like video marketing and stuff like that for different brands and different people. And I've been doing that for a little while. And both businesses just kind of went slow at the exact same time. Like it was like all the clients kind of like were like, oh, we need to take a break. And all the shows ended because it was like close to summer. And I remember like, well, damn, like I was like, this sucks. I was like, I still got all the same bills that I had, and I'd invested all the money into the ramp, and I was like relying on the video job to like carry things over. So when that died down and the shows died down, I was like, damn, I don't have any money. And I had to pay like my truck payment, but I was short. And I saw that there was a local contest at this Redlands skate park. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, there's cash prizes. And I was like, oh, this skate park's terrible. I was like, nobody's going to show up to this. Like, I'll have a good chance of like making my truck payment. So then I go, I like wake up in the morning and I see Pat Casey's like, oh, I'm on my way to this contest. I'm like, ah, shit. I was like, all right, well, I was like, they're still pay money for second place, you know? So I go and I'm like, I'm hanging out and Pat's there. And then Andy Buckler shows up and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, all right, well, third place. They still got some cash for third place, you know? And then Sandoval and Jeremy Malott show up. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to have a lot of fun, you know? I'm just going to have a lot of fun today. Because at that point, I wasn't like, I still didn't feel like myself 100% on my bike. But I did have one slight advantage in my head was I actually judged one of the USA freestyle contests. And I actually got to learn what my job was as a judge and how the judging works. So I was like, oh, like this is crazy. If I'd have known this a long time ago, there's just, like I could just literally like, see every mistake I ever made at every contest ever, like instantly in that one day. So I was like, all right, well, I know how the judging like is supposed to work, so I'm just gonna kind of ride with that knowledge in my head. So like I like literally just landed everything and I just put it together the best I could. I wrote as much of the course I could. I did as much creative stuff as I could, and I just made sure no matter what, don't crash. And I did that. And I was like I rode good. You know, I felt good about like the way I rode, but I was riding just for fun, and I was like not expecting anything at all. And then I ended up getting third place, and I made enough money to pay my car payment. And
Wow.
I got like super excited. And then I was like, dang, that was a lot of fun. And it wasn't just because I won. Like I'd already had the fun. I'd already said I don't care anymore. I was like, I'm just gonna have fun. And then it was a bonus that I actually did good in the placement of it, and I just kind of thought it was fun. So after that, I was like, this feels new to me. It feels different. Like it felt like pure, like the purest it's ever felt, honestly. Like me as a person, I grew up, like I've grown up and learned so much as we all do when we become adults, you know. And with all that knowledge, and I just feel like a new person doing something for the right reasons, and like I love it. And I didn't feel like that for a long time, so that's kind of why I'm back. And I feel like I feel better about BMX than I ever did.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question. You're at the Toyota Triples contest, arguably one of the biggest contests that's happened so far this year. And you said what was the best body varial you've ever pulled. And then you were trying body varial the whip on those dirt jumps too, right?
Yeah. I only got to try it like 2 times. That was such a crazy day. It fully tested my self-regulation skills. Like it was a rough one. I'm not going to say who or any names, but somebody, an industry person that was partially in charge of running the event.
Your sound cut out. I can't hear you. I think
a phone call.
Oh, it's all good.
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you now.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, so there was like an industry person that was running a thing that was like very rude and mean to me the whole time, but I was like, I'm not going to let somebody else's behavior change how I behave. So I was like, I'm going to be nice no matter what. I kept being nice. And I needed help like figuring out like friends and family, because I hadn't ridden in so long and I wanted my friends and family to come, you know. And I had a few, and I understood like, hey, I know I got a lot of people, but what do I tell the people that I can't get a pass for or whatever? Like, he's like, oh, like just buy them Supercross tickets. I'm like, or tell them to buy Supercross tickets. I'm like, all right. So I bought Supercross tickets for everybody. It ended up costing me like a bunch of money. And best trick is about to happen, and like traffic is terrible, and everyone is there, but they won't let them in. And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, they said that we need to have Fan Fest tickets. So I'm like stressing out now. I'm like, all my friends and family here, I paid all their tickets and they can't get in. And I text the dude and he's like, oh, sorry, I'm busy until this is done. So I was like super upset. Like, I was like, all right. And I'm like trying to breathe. And then it turns out that they were able to get in, but they needed to buy Monster cans. So everybody got Monster cans and they were allowed into the Monster Fan Fest. and they got in like maybe like 20 minutes before best trick was supposed to be. So then best trick practice opens, and I'm riding, just kind of like filling out the jumps because I didn't get to ride that whole day. And those jumps were really scary. Those are the biggest jumps to like go back to after not like riding any big jumps. So it was very intimidating. The first time that I jumped the first jump, when I got to the top of the roll and I looked at the jump and I just looked at the floor because I was like, if I look at it, I'm not going to do it. So I literally just looked at the floor and rolled in, and that first jump was super scary. But after I kind of got a hang of it again, I was like, okay, like I know what I'm doing. But right before best trick, like they said, all right, best trick, the timer is starting now. When I went to go up, I realized that my headset was like super loose, and I was like, oh, I got to fix this. Went to go fix it, and I'm tightening my stem bolt or the headset cap, and it's just spinning and spinning, and it's not getting tighter. And I realized, I'm like, oh no, dude, the threads are like gone. I was like, my headset is like destroyed. And then I was like, are you like right before, like right when it started, I'm like, oh, it's like everything was like testing me. Like I was like getting stressed, and I was like, all right, just breathe, relax. I was like, Pat, let me get your forks. And he's like, all right. And then we NASCAR'd it. I put his forks on my bike, and then dropped in, almost landed the first one, just landed like a little sideways. And then I kind of just slowed it down the second time, and it was the best one I ever did because I like when I watched the video, like my bike is straight when I land. Like I've landed like sideways, and I don't mind landing a little sideways, but when I saw that one, I was like, I landed straight, and I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it was butter. Did you ever think you'd be back in the mix? I mean, there's probably a point there. It's probably surreal being on that roll in with all those new pros plus the guys you've ridden with, you know, and there you are back in the mix after kind of, you know, stepping away from your bike for so long. It's probably a pretty crazy feeling.
Yeah, it's there's definitely some things that are different. Everybody seems a lot nicer than when I was like, I think we were a lot harder on each other from my generation. Like even the kids in this generation, I go to the skate park and they're so nice to each other. Like not like we were mean in like a really mean way, but like it was just different. Like we're a lot more I don't know. I guess more like punk kids about it, like compared to like the kids now, they're like real nice. So like all the newer pros, they're all super cool and super nice. And BMX is definitely a bit different from when I left, but there's lots of really cool stuff about it. I think it's moving in a good direction. It's just it's different. No, I don't think like I don't think I'll hang with like the 360 triple bar to double down whip type of stuff, but that's not really 100% what I'm into, not taking away from what they're doing because that's incredibly difficult and impressive. But I think for me, it's like my goal or whatever it is you'd want to call it, my legacy with BMX would be like, I just want to keep doing like creative tricks. I want to innovate, and I just want it to be, you know, just different.
And that's something that we go back to full circle here because, yeah, even back when you're on YouTuber, that was kind of your thing. And, you know, now the tricks have changed. Like you're not doing what a lot of those guys are doing, but you weren't also trying to copy everybody's tricks back then either. So I feel like that's something that is a good thing, especially for you, because I feel like you could still continue to go to these contests, like these new contests. I know they're fewer and far between right now, but your riding definitely has a place and you're not scared to send it. So it's a good mix. So you think you'll be riding any other events this year?
I hope so. I'm bummed because I was gonna go to triples next week or whatever, but I won't be able to because I'm double booked. So I won't be able to go, which is a bummer. I don't know if I'll be able to go to the final round or if you have to ride all three to go there or not, or if it's just finals. I don't know how that works. But that one's in Nashville, Tennessee. But I would consider going there just because I have a couple of friends in Nashville that I could stay with or see or whatever. But yeah, I'd be like super interested to go ride like indoor or skate park contest or something. That'd be super sick. But yeah, you know, I'm just like, it's so different now. Like it'd just be fun to go ride any of these, honestly.
I think it'd be cool if somebody from X Games takes notice to your videos and at least can get you a spot in the Dave Mirra best trick, because I
That's
know
all. That's
that would
all I
be
want.
the
That's all I
ideal
want.
situation. Yeah.
Just the best trick. I just want to go in there and make it happen, you know?
Too. Did you want to say anything about your YouTube channel real quick too? I wanted to cover that as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool that you're doing that.
Yeah. The YouTube channel is just like, it's a fun thing for me. I'm still figuring out my identity on YouTube. I think everything's going to start leaning more towards like a more like cinematic type of vibe. Maybe with like videos that are like narrated more so than like full on vlogging. I'm still fine tuning the YouTube. It's a whole different thing, you know. But it's just like it's just a good place to make videos and have a good time and just try to like make stuff happen. So some videos could be like, you know, fun games like between me and other riders. Some videos are like going on trips or going to cool new spots. Some videos are going to be like telling a story. So I'm just trying to like narrow down like the vibe of where I'm going for with it. But yeah, no, I've been having lots of fun making it. I post like every week, so
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, it's
new
entertaining.
content.
It's sick. And I'll leave with this. Who's your favorite rider, current and past? Like, who's your favorite rider today? Like, new school guy that's killing it that you like watching? I know it's hard to say, but I always have a hard time answering that question too.
It's very hard to say. Well, I mean, past is always going to be like Dave. Mark Webb is one of my all-time favorites. Yeah. I really love Tom Justice.
Oh yeah,
his riding. He does some like amazing stuff, and he's just so smooth with everything. Obviously, Pat Casey is like, you know, he's my homie. I ride with him all the time, so I get to see like a lot of the crazy stuff that he does, and like he's just a super impressive rider. Dennis Anderson, like, honestly, like it's so hard to just say like one, because it's like everybody's so different and unique in their own way, but like Dennis is like an all-around just goat. Like, I'm like, oh man.
And you have a bike sponsor, which is cool. Collective, it's just Ryan Taylor's brand. So how'd that come about too? Which is fitting, I feel like.
Yeah, it actually, you know, it organically is the best.
You can show your bike if you want. It's
situation. Yeah, it's like right here. But this thing is sick. Super responsive. It's super light, and it's actually a really, really, really good bike. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, but yeah, I was talking to other companies because like my bike was kind of beat up and old, and I was just trying to see if like there was anybody that wanted to like kind of help me get back on my bike and have like more of a dialed setup, because my bike was pretty messed up. I mean, I rode the same forks for like 12 years, same handlebars. Like that was starting to stress me out, because I was like, this is scary.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm like, I see videos of people snap their stuff all the time. Like it's only a matter of time before this happens. And so I was like just kind of talking around. I had talked to a couple different people, won't say who, but some people offered me like some stuff that wasn't so great, like just not like really what I was looking for.
What you're into.
But you know, me and Ryan Taylor, we've been friends for a long time, so we're always like just keeping in touch or whatever. And I was like, hey, what's the deal with Collective? And then he was like, oh, you want to ride for Collective? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, you're good. And then I ended up talking to some of the people over there, and then they sent me this bike, and I put it together, and I was like, man, this bike feels really good. And it's the first time I'm running like taller handlebars.
For sure. All right, I'll talk to you soon. And everybody else, thanks. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.